This video has turned out to be a bit of a long one because I wanted to cover the basics of personality type and how compatibility works so that what I explain makes sense. And also there were sort of 3 sets of love triangles that I had to get through, but I have left timestamps for you to skip to the parts that you are interested in if you don't want to watch the whole video. Hi, welcome back to my channel, and I'm really sorry that it's been a long while since I posted, but I'm back and I am ready to analyze the couples on the new season of Love is Blind showing on Netflix now. And we will be analyzing them based on their personality types and see what we can learn from them. Just a little disclaimer, I am only analyzing based on what's been shown on this show, based on the evidence that I have. I otherwise do not claim that I know these people. And it's only my first impressions because so far I've only seen episodes 1 to 4 of season 3. So first, what personality type system am I using and how does compatibility work in that system? So first of all, a personality type is made up of a combination of 4 cognitive functions. So the cognitive functions determine how we think, what our preferences are, how we behave when we are in our natural state. So when we are on autopilot without needing real conscious effort. Of course, we can behave outside of these functions. However, that is no longer on autopilot. It requires conscious effort. And if we do it all the time or for prolonged periods, it is mentally very draining. And within this combination of 4 functions, each type would always have one T function for thinking, F function for feeling, S function for sensing, and an N function for intuition. So for example, Nancy here is an ESFP defined by 4 functions in this particular order. SE, FI as dominant functions, and then TE and NI as lower functions. The dominant functions is what I call our comfort zone functions. We are very happy to use them and we can use them all day long without getting tired. And then the 2 lower functions are also things that we are good at. However, it takes more mental energy to use these functions and also a bit of confidence and comfort depending on who we are with. You can also see using the lower functions as a sign of personal growth and development because these are functions that we sort of deep down aspire to be good at as well. So how does compatibility work in this personality type system? So back over here, you can see that each category of the functions, so a category is like thinking or feeling, they have 2 versions of that category. So for example, under feeling, there's extroverted feeling, FE, or introverted feeling, FI. And these 2 functions can be seen as opposite sides of the same coin. They are different, they do different things, but they're complementary and they need each other. FI is the source and the expressor of feelings and values versus FE is the absorber, the responder to feelings and values. They are complementary but different and they are drawn to each other and they need each other. So that's how compatibility works. Ideally, you would find a partner that has complementary functions to you. So for example, if you are FI, like Nancy here, you would find someone who has FE. So by that logic, you would think that the pairings with the highest attraction, highest chemistry are going to be types with complementary dominant functions. So for example, a FE dominant type with a FI dominant type. However, in reality, in my practice, this is not what I see. I think in reality, we all like a bit of a challenge and we prefer feeling exclusive and special. So let me explain. Pairings that I see in real life that have the highest draw and chemistry towards each other are TI and FI dominant types and TE and FE dominant types. So why is that? So firstly, I think we are drawn to difference. The phrase opposites attract is definitely true. And TI and FI are pretty polar opposites to each other, as well as TE and FE in terms of how they approach life. And I think it's not just that we're different, but that we admire people that are different but share an underlying thread of approaches to life within us. So TI and FI dominant types are both looking for authenticity. FI is about authentic feelings and values, whereas TI is about authentic thinking and principles. And I think there is an admiration towards that in each other. And then TE and FE are both good at influence. So TE tends to be very commanding, very authoritative types. And FE is very social, very good at maneuvering with people. And again, they admire each other for their influence, but in different aspects. Also, relationships and attraction is a lot to do with the feeling function and where it is. So if you look here with TI and FI dominant types, one does have FE and one does have FI, so they are complementary. It's just that they are in different positions and not aligned at the same level. In the good sense, the attraction comes when the dominant FI is so naturally expressive of their feelings that it actually makes the lower FE feel like it's really good at doing its job. And I said before that the lower functions need a lot of reassurance. We're a little insecure about using them, but we aspire to be good at them. That's how the high FI makes the lower FE feel competent and special. What the high FI user gets out of it is that they would be able to sense that the lower FE does not come out for everyone. It only comes out and is used for them. So there's a sense of exclusiveness and feeling chosen. Over here with TE and FE dominant types, so again, one has FI and one has FE, which are complementary, but at different levels. So the higher FE would be skilled at making the lower reluctant FI to be more expressive of themselves. And so the FI would feel like, I don't usually open up to anyone but this person. And then the high FE user would recognize that the lower FI is not expressive to anybody. It's just to them, and therefore reinforcing this feeling of being chosen, of being special. The trouble here is that after the initial attraction, because these complementary feeling functions are not at the same level, there would be a lot of disappointment and waiting around for that person you fell in love with to show up again. So what do I mean? The higher FI user here, FI is their dominant function. They actually have high emotional needs. The only person that could fully fulfill their needs is an equivalent FE dominant user. So they would always be a bit disappointed with the lower FE because the lower FE is not always there. It comes in and out. And the same over here for the higher FE and the lower FI. The higher FE would be always waiting around for the lower FI to come out. And when it comes out, it's amazing. But when it's not there, you start to think, where did that person go? So first, let's start with looking at Nancy. So Nancy, I've typed her as an ESFP. She's what I like to think is a classic kind of Latina heroine. She's very strong, very vocal, knows what she wants and is happy to express it, but she's also warm and fun and inviting.
I feel like I have so much love to give, and I would love to procreate. They deserve the best, and I know that for me it's not settling for whichever guy.
She also has a good pinch of sense. She does think about what she wants for the future. She wants to have 10 kids, and she has to pick a partner that makes sense in being able to support that kind of family that she wants. She thinks about finances, and these I see is her trying to incorporate her lower functions of TE, extroverted thinking, and NI, introverted intuition, which is all about what's sensible, what makes sense, what's practical, and what do I want for my future, not just about right here, right now.
Andrew and I connected financially, someone who will help me to thrive even far beyond what I can do alone is really exciting.
I also think she, for an ESFP, is very mature and well-rounded because she does think about other people's feelings and point of view. For example, when she considers Andrew, she thinks about whether settled married life, which is what she wants, would be boring for him given what he's told her. And also with Bartise, that she sort of calculates, by the time she wants children, he would be sort of still late 20s, and whether he really does want that. So Andrew is, I've typed an ISTP. He is very calm, collected. He thinks he's very suave. He is very intellectual and unfazable. This is because he has TI as a dominant function, as his top function, in fact, which means that his feeling function, FE, would be his lowest function. So in terms of his own feelings or feelings in general, it's quite easy for him to push that down or to ignore it. And that's the case for all types. Our last lowest function is one that we tend to ignore, are reluctant to use, but at the same time sort of secretly deep down aspire to be great at. And I think that's why he is attracted to Nancy, because Nancy is very expressive of her feelings and values. And that is what the function FE, his lowest function, aspires to do. It aspires that outcome of opening someone up. And Nancy, being a dominant FI introvert feeling type, she does that anyway. So it's sort of, he could kind of take credit for that, even though, it's not very hard to open Nancy up. That creates a lot of chemistry, at least definitely from him towards her. She would be intrigued by him because she would recognize that when he does use the function FE, he does respond to her feelings and her expressions of values. She would probably unconsciously sense that he doesn't do that for everyone because it's his lowest function. And therefore, it gives her a feeling that he's chosen her to show this softer, more warmer, hello,
meow,
Meow.
caring side to him. And that's very endearing.
Like I'm discovering a different side of you.
So this, I feel like, has brought us so much closer.
But I think the trouble with this pair and why Nancy didn't go for him in the end is that he inevitably emotionally does not fulfill her because his feeling function, his FE, is that low that he doesn't really use it. I see this when he always responds to her sort of emotional insecurity or questions that are fishing for emotional reassurance by giving her a solution or showing off an achievement of his and then telling her, it's not a problem, don't worry about it. So an example would be when Nancy asks him, are you going to be bored with settled married life? And instead of responding to that insecurity where he says, Nancy, don't worry, I know what I want and I want you and I want this married life. His response is just saying, yes, that's true. I have traveled a lot, and then divulges, all the different places he has traveled, which is not sure why we need all those details.
Does it worry you, or do you fear that that's going to get boring for you?
Of course, it's a fear, right? I think that's the fear that drove me to start traveling in the first place. 3 months plus in South Africa, and then like a month in Namibia, 3 months in Bali.
He then shows off with this philosophy that he took from another YouTuber, School of Life, Alan de Botton, or however you pronounce that. Something about the successful marriage is actually based on people assuming that they are incompatible to begin with and then trying to adapt to each other rather than choosing someone who is compatible.
Alain de Botton, he says that compatibility is a desired outcome of love and marriage, not its precondition. The person you marry, the person you love, should be the one that you can negotiate these differences and incompatibilities with grace and kindness.
Which, is very philosophical and very deep, and she is sort of initially almost starstruck by that abstract thought because he's basically using his third function intuition to wow her lowest function intuition. But in the end, it's not answering her question. She still doesn't know whether he's going to be bored with a married life. She, being a sensing dominant type, tad higher than his sensing function, she's gonna want a concrete answer. An answer that is not vague or, based on an idea. She wants to hear what he wants, what he's going to do when they get married, what he's going to do when he has kids. Is he going to do different things than what he's doing now? She needs concrete, tangible points, which he does not give.
With Andrew, it's hard for me to envision what our life would be like because he is so fluid in his life. So I need to know more.
So Bartise is a ESTP. He's obviously extroverted, very gregarious, very fun. He's also, I think, very tactile, very physical. And that's all to do with his top function, SC, extroverted sensing. He also has TI, introverted thinking, as a top function, which makes him at heart actually very logical, and TI tends to love a challenge as well because they inherently like solving problems. Because he's SC dominant, he would be someone that tends to live in the moment. In his sort of autopilot state, he wouldn't really think very much about the future. And so I think he has applied into this experiment because it's driven by his lowest function, his introverted intuition, which sort of projects a future outcome. And this projection with him in particular is triggered by his parents' recent divorce. And I think that spooked him and made him think about this future of, what if I spend my life alone? What if I don't find the one, my partner?
Divorce, obviously I hate it. My parents are going through it. I just hate seeing them alone.
Yeah.
I want to be able to say that I was with somebody for my entire life. I'm looking for a best friend.
He is actually the extroverted version of Andrew. They both have SC and TI as dominant functions and NI and FE as lower functions. I think just the slight difference in order makes Bartise more attractive to Nancy than Andrew is. And it's because, firstly, they have the same level of sensing function SE. So they are both extroverts, they are both fun-loving, they both live in the moment, they match each other's energy, whereas Andrew is way more introverted.
He is my soulmate. He is the male version of a Nancy, and I am here for it.
And then the other important thing is that Bartise has his FE feeling function, extroverted feeling, a tad higher than Andrew. And this step up is actually a huge difference. Although it's still a lower function, any function in the third slot, we use it in a fun-loving way when we're comfortable, when we're happy. It's a relief function. And so with Bartise, he is very charming in the moment when he wants to be, because he's using this extroverted feeling function in a childlike manner. That would fulfill Nancy's FI function, introverted feeling, a lot more than Andrew does.
I would be a great mom to 10 kids.
Oh man, you a healthy one.
Yeah.
Yummy. I'm going to pump a couple kids in you.
And I think ultimately that's why Nancy chooses Bartise, because she feels that he's warmer and matches her energy.
With Bartise, there's just something so safe and warm. Andrew is too cool, too calm, too collected.
And Bartise is drawn to Nancy for similar reasons that Andrew is drawn to Nancy. It's the FI versus TI chemistry, where because Nancy is naturally so open and expressive of her feelings and values, it makes his lower FE, although not as low as Andrew's, but still a lower function, feel very competent, feel very good at doing its job, and it gives him confidence. Nancy and him have matching energies, have similar family values and backgrounds, and so there is a lot of resonating qualities there. However, naturally speaking, when Bartise is not really thinking about his lower functions, which is emotional connection and about the future, he naturally would just be living in the moment, reacting and responding to whoever's in front of him that challenges him, that is competitive, and that's tends to be what TI dominant types want. And this is why he is also drawn to Raven.
Nancy reminds me of home, makes my heart feel full. Like, oh my goodness, like best friend. And then Raven is like, we have the same common interests with fitness and a healthy lifestyle. She's smart as hell. She's probably smarter than me, which is a little intimidating, but I'm leaning towards Raven right now.
You'd think that after hearing that description that, Nancy makes his heart feel full, that she's warm, she reminds me of home, they have emotional connection, she feels like a best friend, that would be wifey material. But no, Raven's his number one choice. Raven makes sense to him. They are both into fitness. She is intelligent. He imagines her to be someone who is very attractive, so then it's a challenge to get her. Hence that conclusion from him. And that is what TI dominant types in their autopilot mode look for in a relationship. So Raven is sort of a icy fitness queen that I think deep down is searching for her heart. She comes off initially as quite cold, quite standoffish, very no nonsense. People think she's very intelligent, competent, very strong, and very honest. She's an ISTP, and I think the main thing to note about her is that her feeling function, like Andrew's, is also at the lowest slot. And as I said, this slot is a very reluctant slot, but sort of secretly aspires to be good at this function. So with her feeling function being so low, that sort of explains why she is so cold and standoffish. Also, I noticed that when she gets to choose what to do on a date, it tends to be dates where they're busy doing like something or doing an exercise, basically where there's no time to have conversation and get to know one another.
Got a yoga ball in here.
Okay, it was my idea to put them in here.
No way.
Okay, all fours with the ball behind your feet.
And I see that as her being quite FE avoidant, because FE is meant to open people up and let people express themselves and then respond to it. Whereas she's kind of nominally having a date with someone, but not really emotionally connecting. She and Bartise are drawn to each other, funnily enough, because they are quite similar, and they even say so.
I like a lot of things about Bartise. I feel like we literally might be the same person.
And it's because I think not just that they're both, fitness fanatics, but that they are both STPs. One's an ESTP and one's an ISTP, which means they have the same dominant functions and the same lower functions, just in a slightly different order. And there's definitely camaraderie when you meet a type that is similar to you or your own type. However, there's not going to be that chemistry because there's no attraction to people who are too similar to us. And it also means that their functions are the same and therefore not complementary. So they would bond over being similar, and there's a resonance with that. But over time, they wouldn't be giving each other what they need because the functions are the same. They don't have the opposing complementary functions. I think if we focus on Bartise, then his choice between Nancy and Raven has a higher TI than himself. So his second slot TI is going to look up to her. He did say that he finds her quite intelligent, almost intimidating. And people with TI dominant functions, they love a challenge. And with Bartise, he is a dominant sensing type with sensing SE as its top function. And sensing, it prioritizes the sensory experience, the physical experience for itself, but also to give to others. And so appearances and looks is definitely going to be important for Bartise.
Raven looks damn good. I mean, she looks fucking incredible. Look at her. She's wearing a tight dress. She has a great body. Raven's a baddie. Raven's 100% a smoke show.
It's going to be a challenge for Bartise to resist that.
We both are the attention getters. So I'm excited to talk to her. I'm excited to pick her brain. I'm like to connect in real life and see how it goes.
And then you can say, but look, Nancy also has SE, the sensing function, has her top function. So surely looks and all that would be important to her as well. And yes, they would be. However, the difference between Nancy and Bartise is that Nancy, as I said, is very well-rounded, and she does use all her functions. So she does balance out her top sensing SE function with her lowest NI, introverted intuition function. And the intuitive function is the one that prioritizes what outcome do I project in the future. So although Nancy might also really be into looks, she balances that out with looks is not everything. That is not the only thing I'm looking for my future marriage. And that's how you become a well-balanced person. We have inherent yin and yangs within these four functions, and SC and NI balance each other out. One's about living in the moment, thinking about the present, and one is about what do I project in the future? What do I sense coming? It's sort of a gut feeling when it's the lowest function. I said before that Bartise was in this process because I think he was spooked by his parents' divorce, and therefore he started thinking about the future. However, I'm not sure if he's as integrated as Nancy, so I feel he sort of ignores his intuitive function quite a bit more easily than Nancy does. And so in the moment, he would be gawking at the hottest girl in the room, which in this case is Raven. He didn't choose Raven because he was very hurt when he was sharing something personal to him and then realized that Raven was doing a workout, doing jumping jack, which is very weird.
Literally living here, trying to find love. And I'm sharing all this stuff, and I'm becoming vulnerable. Are you just working out? What if my gut's telling me the wrong girl?
Definitely. But it's because of her very low feeling function, FE. She hasn't formed that bond enough with Bartise yet to fully be there and listen to him and hold his feelings. And so she needs a distraction in the form of a workout. To the outside, it would look cold and insensitive, but when you know her personality type, you know that forming emotional connections or looking after other people's feelings, looking after her own feelings, is a struggle for her because it's her lowest function. And so I do feel sympathetic towards that. But because Bartise doesn't know type, he feels massively hurt. And it's because his function, even though it's a third slot, so a tad higher than Raven's, is still a lower function. So he doesn't actually open up to everyone despite his kind of goofy persona. He could have fun with you, but it doesn't mean that he would necessarily share his pain, things that are deep down within him. And so when you don't respond to it after he's done something that is difficult for him, then obviously he would be massively hurt. And then he outright decides to reject Raven in the pods until he sees her in person. And then because he's SE dominant, he lives in the moment. So it's almost like he has amnesia. He forgot that hurt by her, only remembering how hot she looks and how much sense they make together because they're both hot together.
If I had any regrets in the pod experience, it would be cutting things off too quickly with Raven and not giving her that last day or day and a half that we would have had together. There's definitely feelings there, so I don't know how I'm gonna deal with all that, but yeah, this is just all crazy.
It's going to be interesting how faithful he stays with Nancy.
Raven is like the typical girl that I would go after in the real world. We're both like the person that people come to, and we both draw attention. Nancy and Raven, I was like, fuck.
I do wonder if the showrunners have learned from season 2 that love triangles is where the drama's at. There's just tons this season. So I've said with Raven, she is an ISTP, she's TI dominant with a lowest function being FE, which means she is emotionally quite avoidant, tends to lead with her logic, her principles, what makes sense to her. She also has SE as her dominant function, and I said that SE is to do with experience seeking, experience giving, to do with the sensory, tangible world. And so looks, appearances would definitely be important to her. From what she said at the start of the season, it seems like that's sort of the relationship choices that she's been making.
I'm guilty of letting a lot of things go if I like how the person looks, which in a lot of ways can be pretty self-destructive, you know?
I wonder if most of the men that she has been dating in the past are basically Bartise's, and therefore it's only like a physical, short-term fun connection without her really having to open up emotionally and ever use that low FE function. That's her comfort zone, really. But she, interestingly, is attracted and in the end chooses SK. So SK, I think, is an INFP, which makes him FI, introverted feeling dominant, juxtaposed to Raven's TI, introverted thinking dominant. So this is very high chemistry. And they also do not share a single function. All their functions are complementary to each other, but not at exactly the right level, which again adds to that chemistry. Initially, before she opened up to SK, I sort of wrote her off slightly as someone who's just cold and, not willing to really participate in the ethos of this experiment, which is emotional connection. Like, she's working out in the pod, she's not really listening to anyone, she's not necessarily sharing anything about herself until she meets SK. She meets SK and has this emotional awakening that she actually appreciates, which is when I start to sort of commend her. Because basically what SK is doing is that he is using his dominant functions, his feeling and intuitive function, to awaken her lower functions, which are the complementary intuitive and feeling functions. So he sort of guides her through this emotional journey where he reads her real intentions, which is what our intuitive functions do as well.
Last night, one of the girls started crying, then I start crying.
That's just like the most beautiful thing ever. You cried for like somebody else's sake. That just shows like selflessness and character. And it made me really, really like you a lot more.
Thank you. I didn't even think about that for myself.
And he validates her, saying that you have good intentions and you are deep down a good, warm, connecting person.
I've always sought something really intentional in a woman, and I have to say that I have not found that in any other woman but you.
This brings her to tears, and I could see how on the outside it would look really weird because it's like, why does this move her so much? And it's because of her personality type. She is an ISTP. She does have this low feeling function that she avoids using, but secretly always hopes to be good at, always aspires to be good at it. It's just that she's been so closed off that she probably thinks, I'm just crap at this, so why bother? Hence the avoidance. And along comes someone who is so emotionally intelligent and in tune with her, saying and verbalizing everything that she feels deep down but has no words for. And I think what SK gets out of Raven, because he is able to open her up, he would recognize that her feeling function, FE, is in a very reluctant place, and that he would realize that she does not open up for everyone. It is special to him, and that feeling of being chosen makes her very endearing to him.
I love this kind of love, and I have never had this type of feeling before. I see myself getting there in my own way, of course.
So right there, when you say in your own way, I wouldn't want it any other way. I want your love, and I want it in your way.
I think this pair is going to be very interesting to watch because it could go so right. These types can bring so much growth in each other because they're so different and have different strengths. But at the same time, it could go so wrong because they are so different. So where it could go wrong is that ultimately her feeling function is so low and his feeling function is his top function that she may not ever be able to fulfill his emotional needs. And it doesn't mean it can't work. It's just that there would be moments where they might feel disappointed by the relationship because the feeling functions are so far apart. But how it could make it work is that they give an inch to each other. So him with his high feeling function doesn't completely rely on her little FE to fulfill him. He finds his own ways to emotionally fulfill and reassure himself, whereas she gives an inch and uses that FE a bit more than she naturally would. Thank you so much for watching this video. It was a bit of a long one, and I hope that you found it helpful and educational. If you enjoyed it, please do like and subscribe and leave a comment. If you are interested in having your own personality type analyzed or some counseling to do with your relationships, then please do find my contact details in the description box below.